All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor and executive director here at Free, along with Noelle Waisaki. She is our community director here at Free. She's been on baby leave for just a minute.
Sure.
But we'll say more about that in a moment.
Okay.
Hey, if y'all don't know, this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction while creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And that means there's one thing we don't do. And on a count of three, y'all can shout it out. If you don't know it, you're about to know it. 1, 2, 3.
We don't do shame.
We don't do shame in this community. Welcome to all of you online people. We're so glad you are with us tonight from whatever state around the country you're joining us from, whatever sober living house or living room or gathering you're in. We're just glad you're here. Or if you're tuning in throughout the week, if you're maybe watching a replay, welcome. We're glad you're part of Free. All right, Noelle, shall we tell them, do you want to tell them about welcome bags and stuff first?
Sure, yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
do that.
If tonight is your first night here, welcome, and we're so grateful to have you. We have welcome bags right outside the store here. They're in brown paper bags that has a little bit about what we do here at Free Spiritual Community, a little bit about what Tammy and her crew do at Wagon Coffee. There's some fresh roasted Wagon Coffee in these bags, that's right. And then just some free swag. So please grab one on your way out and just know that we are so grateful to have you here tonight. Welcome.
Now, you just had a baby. You and Mickey together had a baby. I mean, you had the baby, but you and Mickey together. Can we welcome?
You would think by the fourth kid, he's a little less awkward about it, but he's not.
I'm still going to make it awkward, all right? Mickey, why don't you bring this precious jewel up on stage and welcome our newest member to the Free community?
Oh, that poor child. So Cora Claire was born April 8th. She was 7 pounds and 12 ounces. And so, yeah, she's the newest Free member. She's pretty cute.
She's glad to be. Now, she does have a free onesie.
She does. It's a little big for now, but she will be rocking the free onesie.
Couple months, she'll be rocking the free onesie. All right. Well, hey, so glad to have you all back. Welcome back to Free, and welcome, Cora Claire.
Yep.
Congrats.
Thank y'all.
All right, y'all.
If you have lost someone to addiction, a close friend or a family member, we are teaming up with Denver University for this incredible opportunity to honor them. And Carrie's going to come up and tell a little bit more about this Into Light project to do so.
Carrie McMullen, come on up on stage, our community ambassador.
Hello. So Into Light Project is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to changing the conversation about drug addiction and erasing stigma, which goes exactly in line with our purpose here at Free. DU has actually reached out to us specifically to see if there's people in our community who have been affected by drug overdose and drug poisoning. They're looking for 41 families in the state of Colorado. What they do is they curate a national exhibit, which is like a professional portrait of your loved one, as well as a professionally written narrative of your loved one's life that's beyond their addiction. So like exactly who they are, more about who they were before this happened. And then what this does is this will go in at DU, it'll be a professional museum, basically. And at the end, the families get to take home the framed portrait as well as the written narrative. You can also purchase additional prints of it, and it will forever be a Colorado State museum that you can access online as well. If you have any questions, please contact me. There's flyers out on our main table as you enter, and then they also have assistance because sometimes it's a little difficult to fill out the application process. So there's actually an option where you can call them and they can interview you and they'll help you through every step of the process. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for taking the lead on that important project. All right, y'all, the way we start in this community is with celebrations. We lift up the good stuff. We celebrate the good. We start with the good here. Maybe it's a sobriety anniversary or the new thing you're getting in recovery, because in recovery, we're afforded a lot of new things like new jobs, new homes, new babies, new whatever the new thing is. We want to celebrate it with you. It's an important part of our 3 minutes together during this time, and we believe that God joins with us in the celebration. So whatever that celebration is, just slip up your hand. They'll pass you Mike, Mickey, and Austin. If you're online, just drop your celebration in the YouTube comments or Facebook comments. We want to celebrate with you there. All right, here we go. Just slip up your hand. We'll take 3 minutes, and it is yours.
My name's Paige. I was recently in the hospital for 3 days, so I'm just celebrating being out and being healthy.
All right, Paige, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, my name is Justin. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm celebrating 64 days of sobriety today.
Way to go, Justin. Proud of you, dude.
My name's Jess, and I'm celebrating Austin and his 11 months on Tuesday.
Austin! Who's the big boy now?
My name's Patience, and I want to celebrate that my dad went to a meeting for the first time last night. He's not sober yet, but it's a step in the right direction.
Progress, not perfection. Celebrating that patience.
I'm Holly. I'm 110 days clean and sober today.
Way to go, Holly.
And I'd also like to say that my best friend Heidi is opening up our sober living. It starts next week. It's opening, so if anybody would like to know any more about it, please see me afterwards.
All right, congratulations on that too.
My name is James. I'm 10 days sober, and my birthday's Monday. And
way to go, James. Proud of you, dude. Got someone over here, Mickey, on the couch.
My name's Emily, and she's not in the room. She's out there watching the service, and her name's Jen. She just is celebrating 30 days today.
All right, Jen. Congratulations.
Hi, my name's Nicole, and I hit a huge milestone. I got over 1,000 days of sobriety.
Woo! Way to go, Nicole.
My name's Levon. I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and today is 5 months sober.
Levon. Way to go, dude.
Hey everybody, my name is Sam, and I just celebrated 103 days from any mind or mood-altering substance and went from homeless to me now employed and housed.
All right, Sam. Austin, we got someone in the front row up here. Dara, you might get to take us home. This better be a good one.
I'm Dara, and I'm celebrating 40 days sober tomorrow.
40 days, Dara. So proud of you. We've got time for one more. Is there one more? I didn't want to cut anyone short. Right here.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I just want to celebrate that I just finished my second week of a new job. That's a really wonderful opportunity and was definitely divinely led. So giving thanks for that.
Congratulations, Sarah.
I see.
And Tammy Canada's
clean
joining me
and
up here, the
shaven.
Wagon Coffee Roaster. So the coffee, if you're new here tonight and you got a little bag of coffee, it was just roasted probably, a couple days ago?
A couple days ago.
A few days ago?
Yeah.
By this lady.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for being up here, Tammy.
Can I celebrate
we were
too?
going to clap for yes.
I have a celebration. We have some new friends in the house from Arkansas, all the way from Arkansas, and they are fellow coffee lovers, roasters, so they're in the house joining us tonight.
Friends from Arkansas, yes. And can I take a point of privilege too? Because I want to celebrate, many of you know I was not here last week. I was doing a wedding up in Estes Park. But I'm so grateful to Matt and Abby and Scott, who was our guest storyteller. I was able to listen on my way back down from Estes Park, and y'all just knocked it out of the park. So thank you. It's so good to be surrounded by good leaders. Thank you all for your work in that. So grateful. Okay, shall we join with our online people?
Roger says, celebrating Kayla's 67 days sober.
Way to go, Kayla, 67 days. Christopher says, I'm celebrating my friendship with Amber, who despite her problems, she keeps on keeping on. That's the way we do it. Way to go,
Nice,
Christopher
Chris.
and Amber. Celebrating that with you.
Devana says, please celebrate my new job as youth partner with Catholic Community Service.
All right,
That's
Devana,
awesome.
we'll celebrate that. Way to go. Jen says, celebrating Christy's 60th birthday, 4/27, this weekend at our friend's condo in North Myrtle Beach. We're all jealous. South Carolina. So grateful. Happy birthday, Christy. So glad y'all are part of this community. All right, thank you, Tammy Kennedy. All right, y'all. So speaking of last week, we wrapped up a series on habits. We spent 6 weeks talking about habits. Now we're transitioning into a new series, and it is called Ever Wonder Why? And tonight we're engaging the why question of why do bad things happen?
Why? It's a simple question with no simple answers. Why do bad things happen? Why now? Why can't I stop? Or why are they throwing their life away? We've made it through hard times before, and I want to have faith, but I still wonder, why?
Why do bad things happen? Sometimes the answer to this question is really simple. Like when I was 21 years old and I was arrested for DUI, just a few blocks from the Christian university where I was studying a biblical studies degree. And I get pulled over, and the police officer asked me to step out of the truck. So I step out of the truck and I immediately fall over. And so they didn't even bother doing the field sobriety test. They just put me in handcuffs and put me into the back of a cop's car. And I remember sitting in the back seat saying, why is this bad thing happening? Why is this happening to me? My brother was just killed of this 2 years prior of drunk driving. Why is this bad thing happening to me? If I could have just seen the cop car earlier, I could have maybe gotten my act together and not swerved so much. And why is this bad thing happening? Well, Ryan, you decided to drive under the influence, and sometimes the answers are really simple. Or you might say, well, I don't understand. Why is she leaving me? We've been together for 5 years. We're building something together, and she's just taking off. Well, we could look at the last 5 years of the relationship, and you cheated on her 4 times. You didn't give a rip about the relationship. You put no value into it. You put zero work into it, and now she's all of a sudden leaving. Sometimes the answer is really simple. Or you might say, man, I don't get it. I work really hard, but I never have any money. And this month it's so bad I can't even pay the Excel bill. Why is this bad thing happening? Well, we could look at what happened 3 weeks ago when you thought it was a good idea to go purchase a brand new full wardrobe. And then the week after that, you paid the down payment on a newer, fancier car. And sometimes the answer is really simple. You see, we have to own our choices, own our decisions. And we have free will in this world, which means we are capable of creating tremendous amounts of good, and we're capable of causing tremendous amounts of harm and destruction. We have to own our choices. But the answers aren't always so simple, are they? Because see, usually what I've noticed in my experience is when we start asking that question of why do bad things happen, that question is connected to immense amounts of suffering and heartache and events that are outside of our control, like that unexpected phone call or that diagnosis or that loss. So in that context, why do bad things happen? Well, if you're here tonight hoping to get that question answered, I'm sorry to inform you, I will not be doing that because I cannot answer that question. No religious leader can answer that question. No one among us here in this room can answer that question. In fact, I would tell you, during your moments of profound suffering and heartache, anyone who comes along to you and tries to give you answers, pat answers and Christian platitudes, well, turn and walk the other way. Because in that moment, those people are not your people. They are not your tribe. But that doesn't keep us from asking the question, why do bad things happen? You know, several years ago, I received a phone call from dear friends. And they were so excited to become first-time parents. And we expected to get a phone call from them any day of them sharing the good news of welcoming and announcing their baby girl to the world. But this phone call came with profound suffering and sadness, and it came from the hospital. Their baby girl was born, but only survived in the world for 1 hour and 13 minutes. And they were asking me if I could come and hold her and say a prayer. And y'all, I remember driving to the hospital saying, why God? I mean, why them? Why this? And the last thing I wanted to do was go sit in a hospital room and pray, because honestly what I wanted to do is just have it out with God and say, why? And you know what I've learned in my recovery, in my ministry, in my life? Is that God can always handle your anger, your frustration, your sadness, your uncertainty, your grief, your shouts up to the sky of why did this happen and where were you, God, is oftentimes the most beautiful and authentic prayer you can offer. And by the way, you do know that we come from a long tradition of people standing out in the street and shaking their fists at God, asking, why, God? And by the way, why, God, were you so silent? Like in the Psalms, the Old Testament Psalms, where the psalmist says, how long, Lord? Will you forgive me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? You see, prayers like this are scattered throughout the Psalms by people who knew God and people who loved God. And so I want to say to you, if you are in a season of suffering and heartache, it's okay to cry out to God and say, why? God is not fearful of that. God is not intimidated by that. In fact, I think God welcomes it. But here's the problem, because you do know there's a problem. The problem in my experience is if we get stuck there. If we get stuck there, in my experience, we turn to two things: control and isolation. And y'all, these things can sneak up on you so quick, you don't know where they came from. It happened to me just last week. Snuck up on me. I told y'all 2 Saturdays ago about a loved one, a dear lady in our family, my age, severe alcoholic. In the battle of her life with this disease of alcoholism, and she reached out for help. And then I got in contact with Jerome. He's on our board of directors. He's like a resource expert. He knows everything there is about the treatment world. And so Jerome worked his butt off to find a treatment that would work for her out here in Colorado. But see, the problem is she lived in Missouri, meaning she had to get on a plane and fly to Denver. And man, everything was going so well, because you know how it is for alcoholics, addicts. I mean, to take that first step, it's hard. It's filled with fear. She took the first step and got in the car and made the over-hour drive to the airport and made it inside the airport. And then she actually made it to her gate, only to find out her flight had been canceled due to a mechanical issue. No other flights that day. And you know what my first impulse was? I need to take this situation and I need to control it. I need to make some phone calls, and I'm going to control the situation and manipulate the situation to make sure it goes the right way, because you, God, don't apparently know what you're doing, and you're not aware this is a life and death situation. And do you all know, sometimes I can become so easily like the Old Testament prophet Habakkuk, who starts his talk by saying, how long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? You ever feel like that? You ever feel like that? God, you know what your problem is? Bad things happen in life. We cry out, but your problem is you don't listen. You don't ever freaking listen. That's your problem. So what am I going to do? You're not doing a good job. I'll take this and I will control the situation. And y'all be very careful when you get to that place. Because what are you going to do if things don't turn out your way? I know you spent all this time blaming God for the bad, but are you blaming God for all the good? Like the breath you just took, your own recovery, the gluttonous dinner you had before you came here? Are you blaming God for the good? And see, when we try to control the show and things don't go the way we want them to go, that's when we love to isolate, don't we? Because we do it out of shame, we do it out of frustration, and we tell ourselves, they're just not going to understand. It's too much to explain, so I'll just isolate. And God, you're surely not going to understand because you don't even freaking listen in the first place. And so we just start to isolate, and we'll do it on our own. And listen, if you are an addict or an alcoholic or the loved one of an addict or alcoholic, you know that we cannot afford to control and isolate. Oh, why do bad things happen? You know, it's an age-old question that theologians have wrestled with for many years throughout the centuries. In fact, if you engage in theological studies or you study theology at all, you're going to come across this word called theodicy. And theodicy is essentially the study of why do bad things happen? Why do bad things happen in a world that is supposedly governed by an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present God? Why does evil exist? In fact, the three traditional attributes that theology used for many years to describe God are these three things. You might recognize some of these words: omnipotent, meaning all-powerful; omniscient, meaning God is all-knowing; and omnipresent, that God is present in every moment, everywhere. And is it true? Most of us, we have a hard time swallowing that first one. Omnipotent. Most of us struggle with that one. And the problem can be seen pretty quickly. You don't have to sit through many theology classes or live long to see the problem. God, if you're so all-powerful and if you hold all the power, well, please tell me why the Holocaust? And if you saw it happening, you knew it was going to happen, and you held all the power, you could have stopped it, but you didn't stop it. Well, who among us would say that that's a good God? Man, that's a good God. No, we wouldn't say that. In fact, it's where those Christian platitudes stop working, isn't it? When we say ridiculous things like, well, you just got to understand, God needed those 6 million Jews more than we did. Or you just got to understand, it must be part of all of God's bigger plan. Or, well, you just got to understand, God is going to do what God is going to do. Seriously? If a car comes barreling down a street and I see it, and my little 4-year-old boy Bricks starts running out to the street, and I'm not a dummy, I know what's going to happen, and I do nothing to stop it, I don't grab him by the neck or grab him by the shirt and pull him back. I just let the thing happen even though I had the power to stop it. Would any of you say, man, that's a good poppy? Man, that's good parenting right there. No, you look at me and say, he's crazy. Something's not right with him. Something's wrong. Call Child Family Services. That's not being a good parent. And see, maybe we need to reframe omnipotence. Is it possible that God is all power in love? That God is always persuading us towards making the world a better place, always persuading us towards love. So this is where I've landed, and maybe you are at a different place on the journey, and that's okay. In this community, I hope you know that's okay. But I'll speak for me and where I've landed. God did not cause the Holocaust. God had nothing to do with it. And God could not have stopped the Holocaust. God cannot prevent you and shield you from all the pain and suffering you will endure in this world, because we are not God's puppets on some sort of puppet string being played with. Why do bad things happen? I don't know. Most of the time, I don't know. I do know we live in a free world where we have free will. And in order for the world to remain free, God cannot, and I'm convinced God is good, God cannot overstep free will. If God were to do so, it wouldn't be God, it'd be something else. It'd be a dictator. So where does this leave us? If we know control and isolation isn't good for us, maybe there's a third way, a third option. And that is we keep showing up in our lives and the lives of others, even in the midst of suffering, even in the midst of all the why questions. You know, there's a section in Matthew's gospel, right in the middle of the gospel, where Jesus is talking to his disciples and he's teaching his disciples what it means to be a disciple. And he drops this bomb on them. Here's what he says. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Now, you might read another big book, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a story in the back of that book that is titled The Keys to the Kingdom. Highly recommend it. Read it after this. You might have a new perspective. So Jesus is about to give them the keys to the kingdom, and here's what he says. Check it out. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And some of you are thinking just like me, that's the keys to the kingdom? I mean, that's it. That's the big secret. I don't even know what that means. How do we make sense of it? So we need a little context, don't we? Keep in mind, Jesus is a first century Jewish rabbi. Jesus is talking to first century Jewish people. For first century Jewish people, for them, the Torah was everything. If you're a bit fuzzy on what the Torah is, it was their scriptures. It's what we now have as the first 5 books of the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. For them to live out the commandments of the Torah was how they found the fullest kind of life with God, the fullest life that God offered to them. Now, keep in mind, over 600 commandments in the Torah. So the Torah raised all sorts of questions for them, because you would have a commandment that says, don't work on the Sabbath, keep it holy, the 7th day of the week. And then you have a commandment that says, love your neighbor as yourself. So it raised some obvious questions. My neighbor needs help today in his fields, but it's the Sabbath. If I help him, am I working? And how do you define work? Is that breaking the Sabbath? But if I don't help him, am I not loving my neighbor as myself? And in the midst of all this, you had leaders emerging called rabbis. And these rabbis would get in heated debates over how to interpret the text. And they each had a certain set of interpretations, a certain emphasis. And their particular set of interpretations was called a yoke. So when the rabbi said to a student, a disciple, come and follow me, the student would be putting on the yoke of that particular rabbi. Do you remember what Rabbi Jesus said about his yoke? My yoke is easy and light. Now, when a rabbi was giving his interpretation of what was permitted and what wasn't permitted, what was allowed and what wasn't allowed, this process was called binding and loosing. So do you see what Jesus was doing here? He was saying to them, you all get to do the binding and loosing. You get to wrestle through these questions. There are no easy answers. You get to show up and wrestle through them. Jesus was empowering them. Think about how big this is. Bring it into our context. Because how many religious people do you know that grew up in a system, a church, a denomination, a ministry, or they had a pastor or a priest that did all of the binding and loosing for them? And I get it, y'all. When we're in times of suffering, when we're in that painful moment, we just want that person. Pastor, just give me the answers. Just see that I'm going through this hard time and I'm suffering here, and just give me the answers. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'll check the box. But when things get hard, Rabbi Jesus' message to his disciples was, you get to wrestle through this. You get to struggle through this, and you are in it together. And by the way, all I have is yours. I've given you everything, and you actually get to show up to this thing called life and faith. Do you know what I learned while sitting in the hospital room that day with my friends? They weren't looking for answers. They did not need Ryan to come and drop some big theological wisdom. What they wanted was for me to just be present with them in that moment of suffering. What they wanted was maybe for me to encourage them and provide some sort of assurance that God is somehow present even in this moment. You know, in the Jewish tradition, they have this really interesting thing called sitting Shiva. When someone dies, the loved ones will come into that loved one's home and they'll just sit with that grieving family member for 7 days. Not to give answers, not to try to explain why this bad thing happened, but just to sit in the suffering and in the grief. And I wonder, as a culture, have we become addicted to answers? Have we become addicted to avoiding the pain? I mean, isn't that why you picked up a drink? Isn't that why we shoved massive amounts of drugs into our bodies? So we didn't have to feel. I don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to feel the shame. And in recovery, we've been liberated from that. In recovery, it's like God says, now you actually get to feel the bad, painful moments. And the beautiful thing about this community is we get to do that together. And I'll close with this. Do you know the greatest cultural lie? The greatest cultural lie you could buy into, and it's said all the time, you'll hear it everywhere. And it's this: God will never give you more than you can handle. I mean, what a bunch of BS that is. Let's call it what it is. It's absolute BS. Because think of the assumptions there, that God is handing you suffering. God is giving you suffering. And if that's who God is, totally count me out. And think about the assumption, you can handle it. Really? I mean, how'd that work out for you? Oh, how mighty of you, you can handle it. And by the way, you know that phrase, God will never give you more than you can handle. It is found nowhere in the scriptures. It's found nowhere in our recovery literature. It's BS. And do you know, after my brother died in that car accident, I was 18 years old, and good friends, my good Christian friends, would come up to me and try to comfort me. And they would say this phrase to me: oh, don't you worry, Ryan. God's never going to give you more than you can handle. And do you know what it did? I know they meant it for comfort, but it just caused more shame. Because what I'm asking myself is, then what's wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Why can't I handle this? If you're telling me God's never going to give me more than I can handle, I can't handle this. Why am I crumbling? Why is my faith completely falling apart? And y'all know what we do with shame. I knew how to deal with that. Just pour booze in my body. That'll drown out the feelings of shame. That'll avoid the pain. And do you know, I think God was there the whole time saying, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, man. It's more than you can handle. And when you get to the bottom of that bottle, I'm still going to be here. And when you get to the end of your source, I will still be the true source, and I will still offer you peace. Because isn't that what we want in a time of suffering? We just want a little piece in here and a little piece in here. And God was saying, Ryan, if you claim on to that piece, if you hold on to that piece, it is going to completely blow your freaking mind. You know what my second tattoo was? My second tattoo was a tattoo of it's on my upper arm here. It's a cross with Isaiah 43 below it. I got it with my brother 3 weeks before he was killed in that car accident. And in that car accident, his car flipped over and his body was burned beyond recognition. And 3 weeks before that, he was getting out of jail, and he handed me this piece of paper that someone in jail had drawn up. It was a cross with Isaiah 43 below it. He said, you want to get this tattoo with me? I was 18. Yeah, let's go get it today. So we got the tattoo. Do you know what Isaiah 43 says? Isaiah 43 is an Old Testament prophet, and Isaiah has God speaking to the people at this time. And God says to the people who are suffering, he says, no matter what you go through, when you go through the waters, you will not drown. When you cross over the rivers, they will not consume you. And when you go through the fire, you will not be burned. I will always be with you wherever you go because I love you. Whew. I did not know how significant that scripture was that I had tattooed on my arm forever until years later. You see, why do bad things happen? I don't know. But I do know when bad things happen, God is not punishing you. God is not getting you back for something you did in your past. God is not teaching you a lesson. God is not against you. When bad things happen, I think it's our job to keep showing up for our own lives and for the lives of others. When bad things happen, I think it's our job to keep leaning into the God who is always with us, the God who always offers grace and peace. So here's what we'll do. We're going to hear a song. This song is called God Is. And during the song, if you want to sit and reflect and remain quiet, I invite you to do so. But sometimes, when we're talking about the hard things, sometimes we need a blessing to remember that God is always with us, no matter where we are, no matter what we go through. So if you want to come up and receive a blessing, Noel will be on this side. I'll be here in the middle, and Carrie will be on this side. Some oil blessing from Bethlehem. And oil is just a reminder. Oil was literally something that kept things new. So if you want to receive a blessing on your hand to remember the God who is always with you, I invite you to come up during the song, or you can sit and reflect. It's your time. Is that on? Oh, it's on. Okay, welcome back, y'all. Man, that's a good song, isn't it? All right. If you're new with us, you should know that every single Saturday night we have a guest storyteller in the house. And tonight I want to, before y'all clap for him, his name is Tom Weinrich. He's with us tonight. And, whoa, did someone say oh? Oh, Tom. Tom, yes, that Tom. Man, I'm so honored to have here tonight. To have Tom here tonight. He's a dear friend. And I invited Tom to come talk about the hard. Is God good even when things are bad? Even when bad things happen? Tom's been sober for 21 some odd years. He can tell you the exact days. But he's a living testimony to you could stay sober during the hard. Introduced to a lot of pain and chaos as a kid. He's going to tell you about that. And I also, as I said in the last service, it's a weird thing to say, but I feel very honored and privileged to have been able to do Tom and Connie's daughter, Hannah, her funeral last summer in July. She died of a fentanyl overdose. And is God good even when things are bad, even when things are hard? Would you help me welcome Tom up to the living room? Tom,
hi again.
Do you feel good about the first time?
Yeah, I think so.
He said to me,
as far as I know.
I said, do you feel good about it? He said, I don't know what I said. I said, dude, if you just say the same thing this time and it'll be good. So Tom, let's start from the beginning because look at me up here double fisting it.
Look at that.
One's water, one's tea. I'm going to stick with the tea.
Look at my notes here.
Yeah, you can use some notes. Now, you were exposed, as I just said, to a lot of trauma and chaos as a child. And so what I love about this is you are speaking from both perspectives tonight, the loved one of alcoholics, addicts, as well as being the alcoholic. But we're going to get to that later. Tell us first about the traumatic things you experienced in childhood.
Well, you say it's troubling and traumatic. For me, it wasn't troubling, traumatic when I was going through it because that was my normal. For me, it was normal to pick my mom's face out of the dinner plate. It was normal for me to drag her out of the bathtub drunk. It was normal for me to drive my dad to the hospital at age 14 after he put his face through a glass table. So tonight or today in my life, I look at that and that was troubling and traumatic. Yeah. But for me, it was my normal. I didn't know any different. I thought all kids did that.
Yeah, not all kids deal with that.
Oh, right. I mean, I had to grow up too soon.
Yeah. So, and you also had moments where you said your sister was constantly inviting you away from the house. Hey, come live with me. This isn't normal. This isn't good for you, Tom. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
So I have two older sisters, and the oldest one moved out earlier, obviously, and there were numerous times that she pulled both the middle sister and I out of the home because it was just too chaotic. That my parents drank every single night. There's not a day that I ever remember them not drinking. And so I would come home from grade school, and here would be my oldest sister packing up my clothes, saying, "You can't live here anymore. You can't live in this chaos." But I didn't know it was chaos. And then as we moved further into my childhood, and I'm 12, 13 years old, at that point, then the middle sister, I'd come home from school, and she would be packing up my clothes in my bedroom, saying, "You can't live this way. They're too drunk. You're taking care of them. You're parenting our drunk parents every night."
Yeah. And you grew up as a kid just learning, this fascinates me, that you lying and hiding, lying and shame was just part of your childhood. And again, you thought it's normal, but it's also why I've heard so many people in the community say oftentimes the loved ones of the addicts or alcoholics are as sick as the actual addict and alcoholic.
Oh, absolutely. Grew up in a small town of 45,000 people, Casper, Wyoming, and we had a family business there of numerous decades, and we were known all throughout the town. And I was told early on, you can't let what happens in our home out, because what if the family's customers come to learn this information, or God forbid mom's boss finds out that she's an alcoholic, all of these things. So I was taught early on to lie. And when you teach 6, 7, 8-year-old, 13-year-old to lie as part of their life, that becomes their life. And so that becomes the beginning of my sickness, was the lying, the cheating, the stealing, the hiding, the dishonesty. I didn't know the truth from the lie at that point.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to fast forward because alcoholism keeps progressing. It doesn't ever decline. It just inclines, the disease of alcoholism. You decided with your sisters you were going to do an intervention on mom and dad when you were 18 years old. How'd it go?
Well, my oldest sister got in contact with a recovery center, and we went through, 6 or 8 weeks worth of training on how to do a proper intervention. We had my 2 sisters and I, so 3 of us, plus 2 uncles on my mom's side and my grandmother on my mom's side. And we all did this intervention. We invited them over to my oldest sister's house, and they came into the room. We opened up our heart and our soul and our pain, and we shared absolutely everything with them about what their alcoholism was doing to each of us on an individual basis and how bad it hurt us. And through this process, we asked them to choose. And they needed to choose, we as a family, which included my sisters, my oldest sister's 2 children, 2 daughters, who they absolutely loved, either choose us or choose the Jim Beam. And at the end of that process, my dad said, "Thank you all for sharing. Julie, get your purse, we're leaving." And at that meant, to me, those words said to me, I love Jim Beam, I don't love Tom. That hurt terribly.
Yeah. And so walk us through the process of what happened in January of 1987.
So the intervention was in September of 86, and the recovery center said, since they've chosen the alcohol over the family's allowed to, or they made a strong suggestion that we spend 1 hour per holiday with them. So having 2 nieces that were young, and my parents were very close to them, we got to spend an hour with them for Halloween, an hour for Thanksgiving, an hour for Christmas, and an hour for New Year's. So to our knowledge, for the most part, we think they stayed sober. We're not completely positive, but we think they stayed sober for the most part during that. But we think that maybe it's that they weren't going to see us again until Valentine's Day. But they started to drink on January 5th, 1987, so just 4 or 5 months later. And my sister called me the morning of the 6th, and she said, "You've got to get to Mom and Dad's house. There's been a fire." So the thing that comes into my mind at that call is, oh, Mom caught the stove on fire again, just like she had so many times that I already had to put out. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "I don't know, just you got to get there as quick as you can." So I drive up, I walk around the corner, and there are fire trucks lining the streets, fire hoses still, dousing the house, and our sofa was in the front yard smoldering. And I just was trying to process what was going on. The windows had been blown out. And my uncle, who lived next door to us, was on his front porch. He waved me in, get over here. And I went to his house. I said, what's going on? He said, your house is on fire. I said, well, that's no shit. I got that figured out. And I said, hey, where are mom and dad? And he said, they're gone. I said, okay, well, but where are they? At the hospital? Where are they? And he said, they're fucking dead. They're fucking gone. And the pain and the sadness came from my toes.
Yeah.
And just came out of me. And I just remember screaming and crying because I'd lost my parents. And he said, you've got to stop your crying, and you've got to stop it right now. Do not shed another tear. He said, you're now the man of the house, and you've got 2 sisters to take care of.
A lot of pressure for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the obvious question, Tom. It's a fair question to ask, and that is, you saw the pain and chaos of alcoholism as a child. Why'd you become an alcoholic?
Tricky question, isn't it?
Tricky question. But I think
It is.
like outsiders ask that.
Yeah.
I get asked that question.
Makes
Your
all the
brother
sense.
was this way. Why would you turn to it?
Yeah. Why not
Why'd you
just stop
turn to it?
drinking? Put the bottle down.
Yeah. Talk to us about it.
You know, it was truly for me, and I know we're not all the same, but we all carry some of the same baggage. For me, it was the pain. It was the shame that I carried, that I knew my parents were alcoholics, and I had to hold all this inside. I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my closest friends.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell anybody around me. My closest friends didn't know, and the lies that I carried, and just the deception that I carried. I had zero transparency with anybody in my entire life other than my sisters.
Yeah. You said you carried that shame, their death, for 15 years. You carried
Yes.
that as a secret.
So they died in January of 87 in Casper, and I moved to Denver in November of 87. And from that point forward until I got sober, I lied to everybody in my life. So friends, colleagues, customers would say to me, oh, you're going back to Casper, you're going to go back and see your family and your parents. And I'd say, yes, I am. They just didn't know that I was seeing my parents at the cemetery. So I lied to them, and they'd say, so where do they live? And I'd tell them where they lived. I gave them the cross streets, which was the cemetery.
So fast forward a little bit. You're a real alcoholic. Last drinks were shots with women you didn't know. I won't tell you all the full story that he told me. We'll save that for another time.
Can't say it up here.
You could. The reality is you all would totally understand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you wound up right after that in a 12-step meeting with your cousin.
Yes. So I had the shots with women I didn't know, and that was my last drink, which is 21 years, 6 months, 3 days, and 18 hours ago.
Woo-woo. Who's counting though, right?
And I had that drink, and I just knew I knew I was going down the wrong road. I knew that I couldn't drink anymore. I didn't call myself an alcoholic, but I knew I couldn't drink anymore. And I remember right where I was sitting when I called my cousin, Diane, who was at the last service.
Mm-hmm.
And I called her up and I said, Diane, I know you don't drink, and I don't want to drink anymore. It's ruining my life. I need your help, and I know AA doesn't work.
How'd that work out?
She chuckled just like that,
Mm-hmm.
just chuckled like that. And she said, well, it may not work, but it's worked for me for 9 years. And this was a Monday evening. She said, meet me at the Dairy Queen on South Pierce, just south of Bowles, on Friday. And we're going to go to a meeting together. And I met her at the Dairy Queen, like I was told, and she handed me my big book. And she said, here's a pen. I want you to write the date of your last drink inside the cover of your big book. So I wrote 10/26/01, and she said, no shit. My birthday's 10/26/92. So we've got the same sobriety date, 9 years
9 years
difference.
apart.
And we just celebrated my 21 years and her 30 years just a few months ago. It was amazing.
Beautiful, man. So, in looking back at the childhood, the fire where your parents didn't survive, all the shame, all the lies that you had to live into, all the secrets, how do you look back on that and say, this is where God was? Where was God in that?
God was with me the whole time. I just didn't know it. For me, God was alongside of me, or God was chasing me. But I just didn't stop and turn around and put up my hands. But he was always there. He was always there when I wanted him there, and he was always there when I didn't want him there. And he always gave me the opportunity, he always gave me the right decision to make, but he gave me the free will that we just talked about. And I have so many times that I've used my own free will to make that wrong decision.
Yeah.
And then I end up in consequences. And my life is difficult. But when I follow God's path, it's almost like it's non-existent because it's so easy. My life flows so simple when I follow God's words instead of mine.
Yeah. So Hannah passed away last July, fentanyl overdose. As I said last service, Hannah was a member here, a member of this free community. And I say that because you all are thinking, wait, there's membership here? I learned in a 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous, we say the only desire to be a member here is the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. The requirement for membership here is a desire to belong. And Hannah was here. She was coming.
She was.
And she died of a fentanyl overdose. And I know for parents, there is no greater loss. I've talked to enough. How do you say God is good after that?
Because God was with her. God was alongside Hannah during those times. During those times of her using, God was with her. God was chasing her. She just turned away and ran, just like I did. But after 4 recovery centers and 4 detoxes, we had Hannah. We had her back. She was clean. She was fentanyl free, and we had her for 6 weeks. And during that 6 weeks, we would come to the 5 o'clock meeting here, Ryan. Yeah. And it was an Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, AA, and NA meeting. And we would come to that 5 o'clock meeting, and it'd last an hour. And we'd ask her, we'd say, there's a guest speaker tonight at 7. You want to go see the guest speaker? We didn't let her know we were coming to church. But we'd sit out here and we'd drink coffee and we'd have some treats, and then we'd come in and we'd see the guest speaker. And it was 4 weeks in, and the study was the different prayers from the Bible. And it was the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And you asked us that night to read the Lord's Prayer, but before that, we sat with our hands open to receive God's prayer, and we read it together. And I'd never seen her before do this, but she sat with her hands open to receive the Lord. So God was with her.
Yeah.
He was always with her. It's just that she was outrunning him.
So I want to close with, did we show your tattoo in the last service?
Hey, I'm just trying to catch up with you.
Tom doesn't look like a tattoo guy, does he? But he's got some tattoos. One, right?
One.
I think we have a picture of the one tattoo he has. Tom, do you want to explain to us, in closing, the significance of that tattoo?
So the significance is the ribbon, and that ribbon has a chain on it. So this is the ribbon of addiction, and it's about breaking the chain of addiction, which is recovery. And then on the left side, we have Hannah's sobriety date, which was the day she passed, which is July 24th, 2022. On the right side is both of my parents' sobriety date, which is the day that they died, their date of their last drink, January 6th, 1987. And then on across the bottom is my sobriety date, which is October 26, 2001.
Dude, that is beautiful. I think we should go get another one together.
I'll pass.
I've never been turned down on that, Tom. Tom, what's that? We could do it.
Yeah.
Tom, are you going to stick around after the service if people want to talk to you?
Oh, please. Absolutely. I want what I have to say. I want my life
Yeah.
to hopefully help one person. And the thing I didn't say last time is if there are any alcoholics in the room or online, please find recovery so your children don't have to live the life that I lived.
I am so glad you and Connie are part of this community. And I said it last service, you are a rock in recovery, a really solid voice in recovery, a voice that we need. And thank you, Tom, for being that voice. And thank you for being part of this community. Deeply grateful. Tom Weinrich, ladies and gentlemen.
Good
You
stuff.
did great. Yes. All right, y'all, the way we close things at Free on a Saturday night is similar to the way we begin. We begin with celebrations, but we close with heartaches, the things you are carrying, the burdens you are carrying. And we know that you don't have any business carrying these things alone. It's why you have community. You suck at carrying these things alone, so we carry them together. So we take 3 minutes for this, and we believe that God always hears the cries of the people. So if you have a burden, get it off your shoulders. If you're online, drop it into the Facebook comments, the YouTube comments, wherever you're joining us from, and we will heartache with you there. Let's take 3 minutes.
My name is Levon. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, and I'm struggling with a lot of mental issues lately. And I put on a fake smile and try to keep it as positive as I can. But I'd like prayers from my peers to get me through. Thank you.
Glad you're here, Levon. Love you, brother.
Asking for prayers for our family. We lost Randy Frazier last weekend. Died of natural causes. He was 68. He was a father of 4, Erica's ex, and a vital part of our family, and we will miss him.
Lifting up your family tonight. Prayers for you.
Hey, my name's Tara, and most people have heard about the 20-year-old that was killed with the rock through the car window. I got called in to work with her girlfriend and her parents. So I've been with them for the last couple of days, and they absolutely could use our thoughts and prayers.
What a tragic story. Thank you for being with them. Prayers for them and that family.
Hi, I'm John. I'm asking for prayers for my family. There's someone I care about a lot that's just pushing me and everybody away, and there's nothing I can do to control it. So,
Yeah.
thanks.
Prayers for you, John. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for sharing that.
My name's Zach. So I was at the 5 o'clock service today, and in between the services, I got a phone call that my son's mom has relapsed again. So prayers for her, please.
All right, man. Prayers for your son's mom.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm just asking for prayers for my mom who has possibly gone out back into addiction and is pushing everybody away.
Christine, lifting up your mom tonight. I'm glad you're here. Prayers for her. Prayers for you. Anyone else? You got 30 seconds.
My name is Trevor. I'd like to ask for prayers for my friend and housemate Philip, who just lost a family member. But I'd also like to celebrate that that's not going to affect his recovery.
All right, prayers for him, lifting him up. One in the corner in the back, Darren, for the last 6 seconds.
I'm Holly. I just would like to ask for prayers for my mother. She's struggling financially, so I just want to lift her up.
All right, prayers for Mama. Thank you for sharing that with us. Darren, you going to join me all the way up here?
I am. I have one as well.
Let's hear it.
I just got a call today. One of our teachers, she was really excited for her first baby, and she lost it today. So
bummer.
keep her in your prayers. Her name is Amanda.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Prayers for Amanda. And welcome home.
Thanks.
Darren's just getting back from Hawaii. We ain't praying for you. All right, shall we join with our online people?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, first we have from Angela. Praying without ceasing for my daughter's continued recovery and for the safety of her baby due in November. Prayers for you, Angela.
Yeah, lifting her up. Stephen says, please pray for Mitchell. He has decided cocaine needs to be in his life. We all know this may not end well. Lifting up Mitchell, hoping he finds recovery. Thank you for joining us tonight, Stephen, and sharing that with us.
Christopher, praying for those I love struggling with addictions. Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, all those dealing with addiction and relapse, lifting them all up. Jen says, prayers for the still suffering addict and alcoholic. May they find the light to recovery and know God's grace and love. Beautiful prayer, Jen, lifting them up. Thank you for being with us tonight, you and Christy. Darren, thank you for being with me tonight up here for Heartaches.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. All right, y'all. One of the ways we remain community together is one of the ways this mission that we have of breaking the silence of addiction, creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. It is possible. The way we exist is by your generous giving in the community. So first, let me take a moment and just say thank you for all of you who give. Thank you for all of you who've made that a spiritual practice in your life, a sacrificial practice in your life. It makes a big, tremendous difference here. Without your giving, we don't exist. So if you feel compelled to give tonight, if you've been impacted tonight, if you've been impacted by this community, if you call this community home, we highly encourage your generous giving. There's a giving box here next to Calvin. Calvin, raise your hands in the air. And then there's a giving box just outside these doors. And if you're not really the cash money type people like me, you might want an online way to donate. And there's 3 different options. You can download the app. It's called Free Spiritual Community, and it's free. It's got all the messages on it, all the content, storytellers, and there's a giving option on there, monthly, weekly, one time, however you want to do it. Or you can go directly to the website, freespiritualcommunity.com, and give there. Or you can text the number on your screen. It'll walk you through a simple set of instructions, and all these are safe and secure ways to give, and we greatly appreciate it. It is what helps keep the mission in this world thriving in this community and all over the country with our online people, because it's a big community and we're so glad you're part of it. Shall we close in prayer? Like we did with Hannah, I'll invite you to open your hands. Yeah, because it's a sign of openness that God is always moving in our midst, and we're open for a new thing, to Spirit moving and breathing in us, through us, and all around us. Take a big, deep breath in. And exhale. And we'll go out with the Lord's Prayer. If you don't know it, it's on your screen. It goes like this. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, this week may you experience all kinds of grace and peace. And we'll see you next time.